My husband had been throwing tantrums for months. Not the cute, eye-roll kind either. I'm talking full-blown, grown man meltdowns, slamming stuff, breaking things, acting like a toddler trapped in a mortgage payment. And every time it happened, his mom would just shrug and say, "Well, boys will be boys." Yeah. No. So eventually, I started throwing bigger ones back. I married Nathan after 2 years of dating, and honestly, back then he seemed like the dream. Easygoing, funny, the kind of guy who'd cook dinner in sweatpants and dance around the kitchen like an idiot just to make me laugh. We moved into this cozy little duplex with a backyard garden I was obsessed with, tomatoes, peppers, herbs, the whole Pinterest fantasy. I worked at a veterinary clinic downtown, and Nathan did remote consulting from home. Bills were split, chores were shared, life felt stable. Until about 3 months after the wedding. That's when the mask slipped. The first crack showed up at a grocery store, of all places. I grabbed a jar of pasta sauce off the shelf, same brand I'd bought 100 times. Nathan took one look at it, snatched it out of my hand, and slammed it back so hard against the shelf it actually split at the seam. The store clerk just froze, staring at us. Nathan muttered something about sugar content like he was Gordon freaking Ramsay and walked off. I stood there holding the broken jar, heat crawling up my neck in embarrassment. I bought it anyway, we needed sauce for dinner, and figured he'd cool off. Nope. The second we got home, he saw it in the bag and tossed it straight into the trash like I'd brought home poison. Then he made himself a sandwich and locked himself in his office. That's when the tantrums started becoming routine. Wrong coffee creamer? He'd dumped the entire bottle down the sink while maintaining aggressive eye contact. Forgot to record his show? He unplugged the TV and carried it to the garage like a hostage situation. Dinner not ready at exactly 6. Every pot and pan came out of the cabinets and stacked in chaotic metal towers across the counter. But the night that really snapped something inside me? I'd stayed late at the clinic during an emergency surgery. Walked in exhausted, smelling like antiseptic and dog fur, only to find every pillow and blanket from our bed stuffed into the bathtub with the shower running full blast. Nathan stood in the hallway watching the water soak through everything. "If you can't come home on time," he said calmly, "you don't deserve a comfortable bed." I slept on the couch that night while he starfished across our king mattress. My friend Lisa kept telling me to leave. Pack a bag, crash at her place, lawyer up. But I wasn't ready to nuke my marriage yet. I kept thinking I could fix it, talk him down, figure out what flipped his switch. But Nathan had this pattern. He'd explode. Break things. Storm off to his office. Then an hour later he'd stroll back out like nothing happened. "What's for dinner? Wanna watch something?" If I tried to bring up what he'd done, he'd smirk and tell me I was too sensitive or making drama out of nothing. One time I tried to stay calm and explain how his behavior scared me. He threw his coffee mug at the wall behind me. Not at me, close enough. Then he rolled his eyes and said I was being dramatic about a little noise. The final straw before everything changed was when his mother came to visit. She actually witnessed him flip our coffee table because I forgot to buy his protein bars. I looked at her, waiting for shock. Concern. Anything. She just sighed and said, "Men have tempers. It's a wife's job to keep the peace." That was the exact moment something in my brain went, "Oh. So nobody's coming to fix this. Not him. Not her. Not anyone." Which meant if this chaos was going to stop, it was going to be because of me. And that's when I decided, if Nathan wanted to live in Tantrum City, fine. I was about to become the mayor. The first time I matched Nathan's energy, I won't lie, it felt amazing. Not mature. Not healthy. But amazing. He just hurled the TV remote at the wall because his game lagged during some online match. Plastic exploded across the living room like shrapnel. He stood there breathing hard, waiting for the usual reaction, me cleaning up, me apologizing, me tiptoeing around his mood like he was a live grenade. Instead, I walked straight to his gaming setup, picked up his expensive headset, the one he treated like a sacred relic, opened the back door, and launched it into the backyard. Full quarterback throw. It vanished into the tomato plants. Nathan froze. Completely rebooted. Like his brain blue-screened. "What the hell did you just do?" he demanded. I shrugged. Lag made me mad. He actually ran outside and spent 40 minutes stomping around in the dark with his phone flashlight looking for it. I watched from the kitchen window, arms crossed, feeling this wild adrenaline buzz in my chest. For the first time in months, he looked confused instead of me. And that feeling became addictive. A few days later, he retaliated by dumping my salon shampoo down the sink because I took too long in the shower. The next morning, while he was out grabbing coffee, I took every supplement bottle on his precious health shelf, protein powder, vitamins, pre-workout, all of it, and emptied them straight into the trash. Coffee grounds. Eggshells. Leftover pasta. He had to dig through actual garbage to salvage them. The sound he made? Pure outrage. "You're insane," he yelled. I leaned against the counter. "I'm expressing my feelings." He stared at me like I'd grown horns. That's when I realized the truth. Nathan's tantrums only worked because I'd always been the calm one. The fixer. The absorber. The emotional shock absorber for his explosions. But now, the shock was bouncing back. And he had no idea how to handle it. It escalated fast. He knocked my makeup off the bathroom counter because I left a hair in the sink. So I walked into his office and swept everything off his desk in one arm swipe. Papers, mouse, coffee, all of it. Coffee splashed across his keyboard. He shouted my name like it was a curse. I just said, "Oops." We turned into mirror images of each other, louder, meaner, more destructive. If he slammed a cabinet, I slammed two. If he threw a book, I threw three. The duplex started sounding like a demolition site half the time. Nathan began telling me I'd changed. That I was out of control. That I was not the woman he married. And every time he said it, I'd laugh in his face. "Congratulations," I'd tell him. "You married yourself." But the moment everything crossed from toxic into dangerous came on a Tuesday afternoon. Nathan had this huge video meeting with his boss, some big client presentation he'd been stressing about for weeks. He'd locked himself in his office with his headset on, pacing and rehearsing like he was about to argue a Supreme Court case. I was in the kitchen making lunch when I dropped a frying pan. It clanged loud against the tile. And like a triggered alarm system, Nathan burst out of his office, face already red. "Can you not make noise for 1 hour?" he snapped. Something inside me snapped right back. I looked at the pan on the floor. Then at him. Then at the cabinet full of cookware. And before my brain could catch up, I opened the cabinet, grabbed another pan, and dropped it. Clang. Nathan froze. I grabbed another. Clang. Another. Clang. One by one, I started dropping every single pot and pan we owned onto the kitchen floor like I was staging a metal avalanche. The noise was insane, echoing, crashing, relentless. Nathan's laptop screen was still visible on his desk behind him, and I could faintly hear voices through the speakers. Someone saying, "Nathan? Is everything okay over there?" His boss. His big meeting. Ruined. Nathan's face went a terrifying shade of red, starting at his collar and crawling upward. He stepped toward me, fists clenched at his sides, breathing hard through his nose. For a split second, old instinct screamed at me to back up. Apologize. De-escalate. But I didn't move. I was still holding the cast iron skillet. And for the first time since our marriage began, Nathan looked at me. And hesitated. Like he suddenly realized I wasn't scared anymore. Nathan stopped about 3 feet in front of me. We just stood there in the kitchen, surrounded by scattered pans, dented metal, and the echo of everything we'd become. His chest was rising and falling hard, nostrils flaring like a bull about to charge. My hand tightened around the cast-iron skillet handle, knuckles pale. For a split second, I thought he might actually swing. Not at me, not exactly. But near me. Past me. Through something. The air felt electric. Then something strange flickered across his face. Not rage. Not exactly. Fear. Like he'd suddenly realized I wasn't the same wife he could intimidate anymore. The quiet fixer. The peacekeeper. The woman who absorbed damage and apologized for it. I held his stare. Didn't blink. Didn't step back. Didn't lower the pan. His mouth opened like he was about to unleash one of his usual screaming tirades, the kind that filled the whole house and left silence ringing afterward. Nothing came out. Instead, he turned sharply and drove his fist straight through the hallway drywall. The sound was sickening. A wet crunch followed by cracking plaster and the hollow thud of impact. Dust puffed into the air. Nathan jerked his hand back with a strangled curse, clutching it to his chest while pacing in tight circles. Jesus, he hissed through his teeth. He didn't look at me again. He just stormed into his office and slammed the door so hard the wall shuddered. A second later, I heard the lock click. I stood alone in the wrecked kitchen, skillet still hanging in my hand. The adrenaline drained out of me all at once, leaving my arms trembling. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The scattered pans looked surreal, like the aftermath of someone else's disaster. Slowly, I set the skillet on the counter. Then I started picking them up. One by one. Metal scraping tile. Cabinets opening and closing softly now, the opposite of what had happened minutes earlier. The quiet felt wrong after all that noise. Through the office door, I could hear Nathan talking. His voice sounded different, tight, high, almost panicked. I moved closer without thinking and pressed my ear lightly against the door. She's lost it, he was saying. I don't even recognize her anymore. A pause. I can't live like this. Another pause. You need to come over. I don't know what to do with her. I pulled back slightly. He was talking to his mother. Of course he was. I walked to the couch and sat down, hands still shaking. My phone lay on the coffee table, screen dark. I picked it up and opened my photo gallery, something I'd been adding to for months without really admitting why. Images filled the screen. The cracked pasta sauce jar in the grocery bag. Our soaked bedding piled in the bathtub. My makeup scattered across tile. The dented wall from the mug. Empty shampoo bottle in the sink. Broken remote in pieces. Dozens of little snapshots of chaos. Proof. Less than an hour later, the front door unlocked. I hadn't given anyone a key. But Nathan had. His mother walked in like she owned the place, heels clicking, purse tucked under her arm, expression already disapproving. She didn't even knock or call out. Just marched straight into the living room where I sat. Hands on hips. Judgment loaded. Well, she said, looking around at the kitchen mess and patched drywall dust still in the air, Nathan told me you've been behaving very erratically. Erratically. I just stared at her. She launched into a lecture immediately, about respecting a husband's work time, about creating a peaceful home, about how men carried stress differently and needed understanding, not confrontation. I let her talk. Didn't interrupt. Didn't argue. When she paused for breath, I simply unlocked my phone and held it out. Photo after photo after photo. She took it, brows knitting tighter with each swipe. The pinched expression deepened, like she'd bitten into something sour she didn't want to acknowledge. When she reached the last image, she handed the phone back. And said the one sentence that finally made something inside me go cold. You both need to grow up. Both. Equal blame. Equal fault. equal responsibility for the war zone her son created. Behind her, Nathan's office door opened. He stepped out looking disheveled, hair crooked, eyes bloodshot, knuckles already swelling purple. He and his mother moved into the kitchen, lowering their voices. But the duplex was small. And I could still hear every word. I didn't have to strain to hear them. The duplex walls were thin, and they weren't exactly whispering. Lorraine lowered her voice, sure, but not enough. Nathan, she said sharply, you need to handle your wife. Handle. The word hit me like a slap. Nathan exhaled hard. She's not the same anymore, Mom. She used to be easygoing. Now everything's a fight. Easygoing. Like I was a golden retriever that stopped fetching. Lorraine made that little sympathetic hum she always did when she thought her son was a victim of the world. Marriage is compromise. But sometimes men have to be firm. If you let things spiral, they will. I gripped the couch cushion so tight my fingers started to ache. Nathan didn't mention the pasta sauce. Or the soaked bedding. Or the hole in the wall currently staring at all of us from the hallway. Nope. In his version, I'd just changed. I'd become volatile. Difficult. Out of control. Lorraine eventually left with a tight smile and a warning glance at me like I was the unstable variable in an otherwise perfect equation. The door shut behind her. Silence dropped like a weight. Nathan and I sat on opposite ends of the couch, not touching, not speaking. The tension felt physical, thick, suffocating. The kind of silence that hums in your ears. Minutes passed. Then an hour. He cleared his throat once, like he might say something. Didn't. I stared at the hole in the wall and calculated how much drywall repair would cost. I thought about the money we'd wasted replacing broken things. I thought about how tired I was. Exhausted down to my bones. That night, Nathan grabbed a pillow and blanket from the closet and shut himself in his office. I went to our bedroom alone. I didn't sleep. I lay on my back staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. The grocery store. The shampoo. The pans. His fist going through drywall. His mother telling him to handle me. Matching his tantrums had felt powerful at first. But lying there in the dark? It didn't feel powerful anymore. It felt like we were two arsonists living inside the same burning house. I'd told myself I was standing up for me. Refusing to be pushed around. But all we'd really done was escalate. And the scariest part? He genuinely believed I was the problem now. Sometime around 3 a.m., I finally fell asleep. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee. I walked into the kitchen expecting tension, maybe cold silence, maybe fresh accusations. Instead, Nathan stood by the coffee maker wearing a smile so fake it almost impressed me. Morning, he said brightly. What do you want for breakfast? I blinked at him. Like, what? He was acting like yesterday hadn't happened. Like there wasn't drywall dust still lingering in the air. We need to talk, I said flatly. His smile tightened but stayed plastered on. There's nothing to talk about if you just stop overreacting. Overreacting. I let out a short laugh, not amused, just stunned. You punched a hole in the wall. You dropped pans during a client meeting, he shot back. You humiliated me. So that was it. His job mattered. His embarrassment mattered. The house damage? The fear? The escalation? Background noise. If you'd calm down, he continued, stirring sugar into his coffee like this was a normal Tuesday, we could go back to normal. Normal. Something in me cracked quietly at that word. He truly believed normal meant me absorbing his tantrums in silence. Me shrinking. Me apologizing. I didn't argue. I just went to the bedroom, got dressed for work, and left without another word. At the clinic, my coworker Alyssa took one look at me and froze mid-sip of her coffee. You okay? She asked carefully. I opened my mouth to give my usual answer, the fake, yeah, just tired. But instead, my eyes filled up. And suddenly I couldn't hold it in anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a blink. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that glass jar crack again, sharp, ugly, final, like something inside me had split right along with it. Nathan, meanwhile, slept like a baby beside me, sprawled out, breathing deep, like he hadn't spent the last few hours stomping around the house throwing attitude like confetti. By sunrise, I was running on pure spite and caffeine. I slid out of bed, pulled on leggings and an oversized hoodie, and padded into the kitchen. The coffee table was still flipped from his little performance last night. He hadn't bothered to put it back. Of course not. Cleaning up his messes was apparently my job, emotional or otherwise. I stared at it for a long second. Then I left it exactly how it was. Petty? Maybe. But I was done being the only adult in this marriage. I made coffee, the strong kind that tastes like it could strip paint. The kind you drink when you're hanging by a thread. I leaned against the counter, scrolling through my phone, trying to settle the buzzing in my chest. My best friend Jess had texted at 2:14 a.m. "You okay?" You went quiet. I typed back, "Nathan had another meltdown." 3 dots popped up instantly. Again? Girl, that ain't normal. I stared at that message way too long. Because yeah, I knew that. I'd known it for months. But saying it out loud felt like admitting something bigger. Something heavier. Before I could reply, I heard footsteps. Nathan shuffled in, hair messy, rubbing his face. He glanced at the flipped coffee table and frowned like I had done something weird. "Why is that still like that?" he asked. I took a slow sip of coffee. "Because you flipped it." He rolled his eyes, actual eye roll, like a teenager. "Babe," I was frustrated. "You know how I get." There it was. That line. The one he always used. Like his temper was some quirky personality trait instead of a red flag waving in HD. I set my mug down harder than necessary. "Yeah. I do know how you get." He sighed dramatically and righted the table with a thud. "You're still mad?" I laughed once, sharp. "You threw furniture, Nathan." "It's a coffee table," he said. "Not a person." That sentence landed wrong. So wrong my stomach twisted. Because it told me everything, in his mind, as long as he wasn't hitting me, it didn't count. I folded my arms. "You scared me." He froze for half a second. Then his shoulders slumped, and his voice went soft, too soft. "I would never hurt you. You know that." There it was again, the pivot. The reassurance. The gentle tone that always showed up after the damage. I'd seen this cycle enough to recognize the pattern. Explosion, denial, minimization, sweetness. Wash, rinse, repeat. "I shouldn't have to be scared in my own house," I said quietly. He stepped closer, reaching for my hands. I let him take them, even though my instinct was to pull back. "I'm just under a lot of pressure," he murmured. "Work's insane. Clients are being idiots. You're the only safe place I have." That line used to melt me. Make me feel chosen. Special. Needed. Now? It felt like chains. Because being someone's safe place apparently meant absorbing all their rage with a smile. I pulled my hands free. "You can't keep taking it out on me." "I'm not," he insisted. "You're overreacting." And there it was, the flip. Suddenly I was the problem. A slow heat spread through my chest. Not hurt this time. Not confusion. Anger. Clean and bright. "Overreacting?" I repeated. "You smashed a jar in a grocery store. You've punched a wall. You flipped furniture. You yell over nothing. And I'm overreacting?" His jaw tightened. You're making me sound abusive. I held his gaze. If the shoe fits. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. For the first time since we'd married, Nathan looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Like I'd stepped out of line. Like I'd broken some unspoken rule that said I was supposed to stay small, stay calm, stay forgiving. Good. Because something inside me had shifted last night. And once a crack starts, it doesn't unbreak. Nathan didn't speak to me for the rest of that morning. Not a word. He grabbed his keys, his laptop bag, and whatever was left of his dignity, then walked out like I'd personally betrayed him instead of just calling out reality. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the hallway mirror. I stood there a second, listening to his car peel out of the driveway like he was fleeing a crime scene. Funny thing? For the first time in months, the house felt peaceful. No tension humming under the air. No emotional landmines waiting to explode. No heavy footsteps or sighs or muttered complaints. Just quiet. I exhaled slowly, realizing I'd been holding my breath around my own husband for who even knows how long. That realization hit harder than any argument. I cleaned the kitchen, wiped the coffee Nathan had sloshed on the counter, set the table back properly. Small, normal things. But every movement felt weirdly symbolic, like I was restoring order after a storm. Because that's what living with Nathan had become, storm management. I checked my phone. Jess, you didn't answer. I'm worried. I typed, he threw furniture last night. The typing bubble appeared instantly again. What? Then, that's not okay. At all. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered. Because here's the truth nobody tells you about relationships like this. The worst part isn't the blow-ups. It's the doubt after. The quiet voice asking, was it really that bad? Am I exaggerating? I'd spent months gaslighting myself on Nathan's behalf. He's stressed. He didn't mean it. He's not violent. Other women have it worse. But Jess didn't live inside my mental gymnastics. She saw it plain. You need to be careful, she texted. This escalates. That word, escalates, sent a chill down my spine. Because deep down, I knew. You don't start at flipped tables. You build to them. I walked into the living room and sat on the couch, staring at the faint scuff mark on the wall where Nathan's fist had hit months ago. He'd patched it, painted over it, joked about it. Drywall's cheap, he'd said. At the time, I'd laughed weakly. Now the memory made my stomach turn. I grabbed my laptop and opened the browser before I could overthink it. My fingers hovered over the keys. Then I typed, signs of emotional abuse. The page filled instantly. Articles. Lists. Hotline banners. Bullet points. I read. Walking on eggshells. Fear of partner's reactions. Minimizing behavior. Blame shifting. Unpredictable anger. Property destruction. Each line felt like someone had been secretly filming my life. My chest tightened. My palms went cold. Because this wasn't dramatic internet exaggeration. This was us. Or at least, him. I slammed the laptop shut, heart pounding. No, I whispered out loud, like saying it could undo it. He's not abusive. But the word had already landed in my brain. And once you see a pattern, you can't unsee it. I stood and paced the living room. Back and forth. Back and forth. My mind replayed every incident I'd filed away under Nathan being Nathan. The grocery store jar. The wall punch. The screaming over takeout being wrong. The slammed doors. The shattered glass. The eye rolls. The blame. It stacked up fast when I stopped excusing it. My phone buzzed again. Jess, I'm serious. Are you safe? Safe. Such a simple word. I looked around my house, the house I'd chosen, decorated, filled with photos and plants and soft blankets, and felt something I'd never felt here before. Uncertain. That realization settled heavy in my bones. Because love is supposed to feel safe. Steady. Warm. Not like you're constantly bracing for impact. I sank onto the couch again, staring at nothing. And for the first time, really, truly, I asked myself a question I'd been avoiding for months. What if this doesn't get better? The thought scared me. But the next one? What if it gets worse? That one terrified me. Nathan came home early that day. Which, in itself, was weird. He was usually glued to work until at least 7, sometimes later when he wanted extra distance after a fight. So when I heard his car pull into the driveway at 3:42 p.m., my stomach dropped like I'd missed a step on stairs. Instinct. That's the only word for it. My body reacted before my brain could catch up, shoulders tight, breath shallow, ears tuned for the slam of a door or the stomp of heavy footsteps. But when he walked in, he wasn't storming. He was smiling. That soft, apologetic, boyish smile he used when he knew he'd screwed up but wanted forgiveness without actually saying the words I was wrong. "Hey," he said gently. My guard went up anyway. "Hey." He set his laptop bag down carefully, like he didn't want to make sudden noises around a skittish animal. "Around me. I took the afternoon off," he said. "Thought we could hang out." Hang out. Like we were college kids, not a married couple whose relationship had started feeling like a minefield. I crossed my arms loosely. "Why?" He shrugged, stepping closer. "Because I hate fighting with you." There it was again, that soft tone, the vulnerability wrapper around accountability avoidance. "I hate it too," I said. "I know I've been intense lately," he continued, eyes searching my face. "Work's just killing me. I get overwhelmed. You're the only place I can let it out." That phrase again. Only place. Let it out. I felt that chain sensation tightening around my chest, same as this morning. Because what he called letting it out felt a lot like dumping emotional acid on me and expecting gratitude. I held his gaze. "You can't keep exploding." "I'm not exploding," he said quickly. "I just lose my temper sometimes. Over small things," I added. He hesitated. "Yeah. And it scares me." The word hung there. Scares. It always changed the air when I said it. Because fear forced him to confront a version of himself he didn't want to see. His expression flickered, hurt, defensiveness, then that practiced softness. "I don't want you scared of me." "Then stop giving me reasons to be," I said quietly. Silence stretched between us. Then he stepped closer and wrapped his arms around me. Normally, that would have melted me instantly. Nathan was warm, solid, familiar. Home. Today? My body stayed stiff a second too long. He felt it. I knew he did. His arms tightened. "I'm sorry," he murmured into my hair. 2 words. Rare currency. My chest ached. Because part of me wanted to fall into that apology and pretend everything was fixed. That this was just a rough patch. That love plus patience equals healing. But another part, the part that had read those articles this morning, stayed alert. "Sorry for what?" I asked. He pulled back slightly. "For getting mad." "Mad how?" A pause. His jaw flexed. "Do we really need to dissect it?" Yes. That was exactly what we needed. But his discomfort was obvious, and I recognized the edge creeping in, the one that said we were one push away from another argument. So I chose the smaller truth. "You flipped a table." He exhaled sharply through his nose. It was a coffee table. There. Again. Minimize. I stepped out of his arms. "See? That's what I mean. You don't think it's a big deal." I think you're magnifying it, he shot back. And I think you're normalizing it, I said. The softness vanished. His shoulders squared. The tension snapped back like a rubber band stretched too far. For a split second, I thought, here we go again. But then something surprising happened. He stopped. Actually stopped. His face shifted, like he'd caught himself mid-fall. He dragged a hand down his mouth, eyes closing briefly. Okay, he said quietly. Maybe it was too much. I blinked. That was new. My guard lowered half an inch. It was. He nodded once, slow. I'll work on it. 4 words. Even rarer than sorry. Hope flickered in my chest before I could stop it. Because when someone you love finally acknowledges a problem, it feels like sunrise after a long night. Thank you, I said. He reached for my hand again. I let him take it. This time, my fingers curled back automatically. Habit. Muscle memory. Love. Let's just have a good night, he said. No stress. I'll cook. Nathan cooking was basically a holiday-level event. I huffed a small laugh. You? In a kitchen? Should I call emergency services now or later? He grinned. Rude. I make a mean steak. That one time, I said. Hey, greatness leaves an impression. The ease between us crept back in, fragile but familiar. And for a moment, just a moment, I let myself believe maybe this was the turn. The point where things shifted. Where he realized. Where we healed. Because love wants to believe. Even when experience says be careful. Even when patterns whisper otherwise. Even when something deep inside you still feels uneasy. Nathan did cook that night. Which, to be fair, was impressive considering his usual culinary range topped out at cereal and takeout apps. He grilled steaks on the patio like he was hosting a cooking show, apron and all, dramatically flipping meat with tongs while narrating fake instructions in a deep announcer voice. Welcome back to Steak Night with Nathan, he boomed. Today we're seasoning with arrogance and just a hint of emotional damage. I snorted despite myself. You forgot delusion. Ah yes, he said solemnly. A staple spice. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, we felt like us again. The easy banter. The private jokes. The rhythm we'd built over years before everything got sharp. We ate outside under the patio lights, plates balanced on our knees, summer air warm and soft. He'd actually nailed the steaks, perfectly medium, juices running, rosemary butter melting on top. Okay, I admitted. You win. This is good. He leaned back in his chair, smug. I told you. Hidden talents. Very hidden, I said. He reached over and tapped my knee with his foot. A small, affectionate gesture he'd done since we were dating. Something in my chest loosened. This was the Nathan I fell for. The funny one. The attentive one. The guy who once drove 3 hours at midnight just because I'd had a bad day. Not the man who punched walls. Not the man who flipped tables. Not the man who made my stomach clench at the sound of his car. The contrast hit me hard. Because both versions were real. And I didn't know anymore which one was the exception. Hey, he said softly. I looked up. His expression had shifted, serious now, eyes steady on mine. I meant what I said earlier. About? Working on my temper. Hope flickered again, cautious but alive. Okay. He nodded. I don't like who I've been lately. That landed deeper than any apology. Because it wasn't about me being upset, it was about him recognizing himself. I don't either, I said gently. He winced faintly. Fair. Silence settled between us, but it wasn't heavy this time. Just honest. I think I'm just stressed, he went on. Work pressure, money stuff, everything piling up. And you're the only person I don't have to filter with. There it was again. That line. Except tonight, I heard it differently. Not romantic. Not intimate. Dangerous. Because being someone's only unfiltered space meant they felt entitled to dump everything there, anger included. I want to be safe for you, I said carefully. But not a punching bag. His eyes snapped up. You're not. Emotionally, Nathan. He exhaled, shoulders sagging. I know. Progress, I told myself. This is progress. He reached across the small gap between our chairs and took my hand. His thumb rubbed slow circles over my knuckles. Familiar. Soothing. I'll do better, he said. 4 words again. My chest warmed despite the tiny voice whispering we've heard promises before. Okay, I said softly. He squeezed my hand. You're my person. I never want to hurt you. The words were perfect. The kind people write in anniversary cards. And I wanted, God, I wanted, to trust them completely. But memory is stubborn. It replayed the jar shattering. The wall denting. The table flipping. The yelling. Love sat in my chest beside unease, the two emotions tangled like wires. We finished dinner, cleaned up together, shoulders bumping lightly at the sink. Domestic, normal, sweet. The kind of evening couples post online with captions about gratitude. Later, we curled up on the couch to watch some random crime show. Nathan's arm draped over me, fingers absently tracing patterns on my arm. I leaned into him. Habit again. Comfort again. Halfway through the episode, his phone buzzed on the coffee table. He glanced at it. And in that split second, everything changed. It was subtle. Most people wouldn't have noticed. But I did. Because I knew his face. The warmth drained out of it. His jaw tightened. His shoulders stiffened under my cheek. The relaxed Nathan vanished. What? I asked, lifting my head. Nothing, he said quickly, flipping the phone screen down. Too quickly. My stomach dropped. Who was it? Work. One word. Flat. Closed. But the tension radiating off him was anything but nothing. The same energy as before storms. I sat up slowly. What about work? He grabbed the remote and muted the TV, eyes fixed on the dark screen. Just, crap, he muttered. The air shifted. That fragile piece we'd built all evening? I felt it cracking. I watched Nathan's face the way you watch the sky when thunderheads start rolling in, searching for the exact second calm turns into storm. He stared at his phone like it had personally offended him. Jaw tight. Shoulders rigid. Breath shallow. Every muscle in his body coiled with that familiar, dangerous tension I'd come to recognize too well. Bad email? I asked carefully. He didn't answer right away. His thumb hovered over the screen, then locked it and tossed the phone onto the table harder than necessary. Client being an idiot, he said. There it was. The spark. I felt my stomach drop into that old, bracing position. The one that prepared for impact. Because I'd seen this progression before, irritation, rumination, explosion. Want to vent? I offered, keeping my tone neutral, calm. Safe. He huffed a humorless laugh. What's the point? Nobody listens. I listen. He glanced at me, eyes sharp. Yeah, and then you tell me I'm overreacting. The accusation landed like a slap. I don't, I started. You always take everyone else's side, he cut in. My chest tightened. Nathan, I don't even know what happened. Doesn't matter, he muttered. You think I'm the problem anyway. That was new. And not. Because beneath his defensiveness, I heard something else, the echo of our morning conversation. The word abusive hanging between us, even though I'd only implied it. I don't think you're the problem, I said carefully. I think the way you handle anger is. His head snapped toward me. See? There it is. What? You psychoanalyzing me. I blinked. I'm not. God, you make everything a therapy session, he snapped. The volume spike hit me like cold water. I went still. I'm just trying to talk. Yeah, about how broken I am, he said, voice rising. I never said that. You don't have to. He stood abruptly, pacing a few steps before turning back. You look at me like I'm some ticking time bomb. Because sometimes you are, my brain whispered. But I didn't say it. Instead, I look at you like someone I love who's hurting. For a split second, that softened him. I saw it. Then his phone buzzed again. His eyes flicked down. And the softness shattered. He grabbed it, scanned the screen, and swore under his breath. Unbelievable. The storm surged. I felt it physically, the energy in the room spiking, oxygen thinning, my pulse climbing to match his. What's going on? I asked quietly. They're blaming me, he snapped. Their mistake, my fault. Story of my life. Who's they? My client, obviously. Okay, what happened? I just said, he barked, they screwed up and now they're pinning it on me. The volume slammed into me. My shoulders flinched before I could stop them. He saw. We both froze in that moment. Because flinching changes everything. It's physical proof of fear. His eyes locked on my face, on the reflex I couldn't hide. Something like shock flickered across his expression. Then shame. Then anger again, but different now. Not outward. Inward. Jesus, he muttered, dragging a hand through his hair. I didn't even touch you. My throat tightened. I know. But the damage was already done. Because the issue was never contact. It was the threat in the air. He paced again, faster now, like he was trying to outrun the moment. I can't even be frustrated without you acting scared. I didn't act, I said softly. I reacted. He stopped. Turned. To what? The truth hovered on my tongue, you. But fear, old habit, edited it. To yelling. He stared at me, breathing hard. Then he did something that terrified me more than shouting. He laughed. Short. Bitter. Disbelieving. So now I'm not allowed to raise my voice? That's not what I said. You're impossible, he snapped. The words hit deeper than the volume. Because they carried blame. Again. Always. My chest burned, hurt mixing with anger at last. I'm not the one screaming. I'm not screaming. You're yelling right now. I'm talking loud, he shouted. Silence crashed down after. The irony hung thick between us. We stared at each other across the living room, distance that felt miles wide. His chest heaving. My heart pounding. The evening's warmth lay in ruins around us like broken glass. Finally, his shoulders sagged. Forget it, he muttered. I can't do this. He grabbed his keys off the table. My stomach dropped. Do what? This, he said, gesturing between us. Whatever this is. Fear spiked sharp. Nathan. But he was already heading for the door. And just before he walked out, he said the sentence that would echo in my head for weeks. I feel like a monster in my own house. The door slammed behind him. And I stood there shaking, staring at the empty space he'd left. Because the worst part? A piece of me still felt guilty. The house went silent after Nathan left. Not peaceful silent. Aftershock silent. The kind that settles when something loud and ugly has just happened and the walls are still holding the echo. I stood in the living room exactly where he'd left me, heart hammering, ears ringing with that last sentence. I feel like a monster in my own house. It replayed on loop, each repetition pressing heavier. Monster. The word twisted inside me. Because I'd never called him that. Never even thought it, at least not consciously. But he'd said it. About himself. And somehow, he'd made it my fault. My chest tightened as guilt crept in, slick and familiar. Had I pushed too hard? Been too critical? Too sensitive? The old mental spiral started fast, well-worn grooves in my brain lighting up. Maybe I should have dropped it. He was stressed. I escalated too. I sank onto the couch, hands trembling slightly. Adrenaline crash. Emotional whiplash. Because this was the part nobody outside sees, the aftermath. The confusion fog that settles after conflict with someone volatile. Your body still buzzing. Your mind rewriting events. Your heart aching for the version of them you love. I pressed my palms to my eyes, trying to slow the spiral. But memory kept replaying the scene. His voice rising. My flinch. His face when he saw it. That look had burned into me. Shock. Hurt. Something cracked open. Because in that instant, he'd realized something about himself he didn't want to see. And instead of sitting with it, he ran. A tear slipped down my temple into my hair. I didn't even feel it happen. God, I hated this. The constant emotional vertigo. The swinging between tenderness and tension. The way one good evening could collapse in minutes. I grabbed my phone without thinking. Jess, how's the peace summit going? The normalcy of the text broke something loose in me. I typed, he left. We fought again. The reply came instantly. What happened? My thumbs hovered. How do you explain this cycle to someone who doesn't live inside it? The push, the pull, the apology, the explosion, the guilt, the love, the fear, all tangled so tight you can't separate them. I tried anyway. He got mad about work. Started yelling. I flinched. He said I make him feel like a monster. 3 dots. Pause. Then, you didn't make him anything. I stared at that sentence. Simple. Direct. So different from the chaos in my head. He looked hurt, I typed. When I flinched. Jess, because he realized he scared you. The truth of that landed heavy. Not accusation. Not blame. Just fact. He didn't mean to, I wrote weakly. Jess, intent doesn't erase impact. That line hit like a bell in my chest. Because that was exactly what I'd been struggling to articulate for months. Nathan's anger wasn't always intentional harm. But it still harmed. I set the phone down, staring at the dark TV screen reflecting my own tired face. I feel like a monster in my own house. Why did that sentence hurt me so much? Because beneath the blame, there'd been something raw in his voice. Something almost childlike. Shame. Nathan hated shame. Avoided it like fire. And tonight, for a split second, he'd felt it. Which meant tomorrow, like always, one of 2 things would happen. He'd come back softened, apologetic, promising change. Or hardened, defensive, rewriting events so I'd become the villain. Cycle A or Cycle B. Both familiar. Both exhausting. I leaned back on the couch, staring at the ceiling fan turning slow circles. And for the first time, a thought surfaced, not loud, not decisive, just quiet and steady. How many more cycles can I survive? The question scared me. Because love wasn't supposed to feel like endurance. And yet, lately, that's exactly what mine had become. Nathan didn't come home that night. That, in itself, wasn't entirely new. After big fights, he sometimes drove around for hours to cool off. Once, early in our marriage, he'd even slept in his car outside the office because he needed space. But he'd always come back before morning. Always. So when midnight slid past, then 1, then 2, and his side of the bed stayed cold and untouched, a slow dread began to pool in my stomach. I lay awake staring into the dark, every passing car outside making my pulse jump. My brain kept cycling through possibilities. Still driving. At a bar. At a friend's place. Too angry to come back. Or worse, hurt. That last one punched straight through everything else. Because no matter how tangled things had become between us, I still loved him. That part hadn't broken. Not yet. At 2:17 a.m., I finally grabbed my phone and texted. "Are you okay?" The message showed delivered. No reply. I watched the screen for a full minute anyway, like staring could force those typing dots to appear. Nothing. I set the phone down on my chest, heart thudding too fast in the quiet bedroom. This silence felt different from his usual cooling-off disappearances. He wasn't just avoiding me. He was punishing me. The realization slid in cold and clear. Because tonight hadn't just been another argument. Something deeper had cracked open, the moment he saw my fear. The moment he couldn't pretend anymore that his anger stayed harmless. And instead of facing that, he'd flipped it. I feel like a monster in my own house. Translation: you made me feel this way. The guilt tried to creep back in, but it didn't land the same now. Jess's words still echoed, intent doesn't erase impact. I turned onto my side, staring at Nathan's pillow. Memory ambushed me without warning, an old one, soft and warm. Our first apartment. Cheap carpet. Too small couch. We'd argued over something stupid, burnt pasta or bills or whose turn it was to clean. I'd gotten overwhelmed and cried, and Nathan had immediately panicked. "Hey, he'd said, pulling me close. "I hate when you cry. I never want to be the reason." Back then, his voice had been pure concern. No defensiveness. No blame. Just love. The contrast hit so hard my throat closed. When did that version of him start disappearing? When did anger become his default language? When did I start flinching? I squeezed my eyes shut, but sleep wouldn't come. My mind replayed years in fast cuts, good moments tangled with bad. Road trips. Lazy Sundays. His laugh. The wall dent. The grocery store jar. His arms around me. His shouting. Love and fear stitched together so tightly they were almost indistinguishable. At 3:04 a.m., my phone buzzed. My heart leapt. I grabbed it instantly. "Nathan, I'm fine. Staying out tonight." Relief and hurt slammed together in my chest. Fine. Staying out. No apology. No explanation. No "I love you." Just distance. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then another realization settled in, heavy and undeniable. He wasn't the only one pulling away anymore. Something in me had started stepping back too. Not dramatically. Not consciously. Just, instinctively. Like touching a hot surface once too often. You still reach, but slower. Cautious. Ready to recoil. I set the phone down and rolled onto my back, staring into the darkness. This marriage used to feel like the safest place in the world. Now it felt like standing on shifting ground, never sure when the next crack would open. And lying there alone in the bed we'd shared for years, I felt a truth I'd been resisting finally settle fully into place. Love wasn't supposed to make you feel unsafe. No matter how stressed he was. No matter how sorry he sounded later. No matter how many good memories existed. Fear had no rightful home inside love. The thought didn't come with clarity or decisions. Just a quiet, aching awareness. And once you reach that point, you can't unknow it. Nathan came home at 9:12 the next morning. I knew the exact time because I'd been awake since 6, sitting at the kitchen table with cold coffee and a mind that hadn't stopped spinning all night. When his key finally turned in the lock, the sound cut through me like a blade, equal parts relief and dread. The door opened slowly. He stepped in looking wrecked. Same clothes. Eyes bloodshot. Stubble shadowing his jaw. Shoulders slumped like he'd aged 5 years overnight. For a split second, all my anger dissolved into concern. "Hey," I said quietly. His gaze lifted to mine. And the pain in his eyes nearly undid me. Because it was real. Raw. Unfiltered. "Hey," he rasped. Silence stretched between us, thick with everything unsaid. I stood, unsure what version of him I was facing today, soft Nathan or defensive Nathan. Cycle A or B? He answered that question fast. "I didn't sleep," he said. "Neither did I thought. But I just nodded. Me neither." He swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing. "I drove all night." That landed heavy. "Why?" His laugh was brittle. "Didn't trust myself to come back." My chest tightened. "To do what?" His eyes dropped to the floor. "Say something worse." The honesty startled me. This wasn't blame. Not yet. Just confession. I took a careful step closer. "Nathan. I scared you," he cut in. The words hung there. Bare. Undeniable. My throat closed. Because he'd never said that before. Not directly. "You flinched," he continued, voice rough. "Like I was going to hit you." "I didn't think you would," I said quickly. His gaze snapped up. "But your body did." I had no answer. Because he was right. And we both knew it. He dragged a hand down his face. "I saw it, Anne." "God." His voice broke slightly. I hated myself in that moment. Emotion surged through me, sadness, empathy, love, all tangled with the lingering fear. "I don't want to be someone you're afraid of," he said. "I don't want to be afraid," I whispered. Silence again. But this one felt different. Not volatile. Not brittle. Honest. He sank into a kitchen chair like his legs gave out. "I keep replaying it," he muttered. "Your face. The way you went still." I sat across from him slowly. "Last night," he said, staring at the table, "I realized something." My pulse quickened. "What?" His jaw flexed. "This isn't normal." The words landed like a dropped stone in water, ripples spreading wide. "I mean," he went on, voice low, "people get mad, yeah. But not like me. Not explosive." I held my breath. Because this was the edge of something huge. Self-awareness. The thing I'd been hoping for. Waiting for. Doubting I'd ever see. "I don't know why I go from zero to rage so fast," he said. "It's like something snaps and I can't stop it." My chest ached hearing him finally describe it himself. "That's not okay," he added quietly. Tears burned my eyes. Because those were the exact words I'd needed for months. He finally looked up at me. "I think I need help." The sentence hit with the force of a wave. Hope surged, sharp, bright, almost painful. "Okay," I said, voice shaking. "We can find someone. Therapy, anger management, whatever helps." He nodded once, slow. "I don't want to lose you," he said. There it was. The core fear beneath everything. My heart twisted. I don't want that either. And in that moment, it was true. Completely true. Despite everything, love was still there. Bruised. Frayed. But alive. He reached across the table, hesitant. "Can I?" I slid my hand into his before he finished. His grip tightened, warm and familiar. For the first time in months, the space between us didn't feel dangerous. It felt possible. Not fixed. Not healed. But maybe, finally, facing the truth instead of circling it. And as we sat there in the quiet kitchen, fingers intertwined, I let myself believe something I hadn't dared in a long time. Maybe this was the beginning of real change. For about 3 weeks, things were different. Not magically perfect. Not movie montage healed. But steadier. Quieter. Like the emotional volume in our house had been turned down from blaring to background. Nathan found a therapist. That alone felt monumental. He'd spent years insisting therapy was for people who can't handle their own crap, so watching him sit at the dining table filling out intake forms with a serious, almost nervous expression felt surreal. First session's Thursday, he told me one night, rubbing the back of his neck. I tried to keep my voice calm. Supportive, not overwhelming. That's good. He nodded. I'm kinda scared. The honesty hit me right in the chest. That makes sense. He huffed a small laugh. What if they just tell me I'm an asshole? I reached over and squeezed his hand. Then you'll be a self-aware one. He snorted. Rude. But he smiled. And that was the pattern those weeks, effort mixed with awkward humor, vulnerability threaded through discomfort. He came home from the first session quiet, thoughtful. How was it? I asked gently. He sank onto the couch beside me. Weird. Bad weird? No, like someone holding up a mirror weird. My pulse quickened. Yeah? He nodded slowly. She asked about my anger. Not just when it happens, what it feels like right before. I leaned in. What did you say? That it's like pressure, he said, frowning slightly. Building fast. Like if I don't release it, I'll explode. My stomach twisted. Because that metaphor had always been visible from the outside. Hearing him describe it himself felt both validating and heartbreaking. She said anger's usually a secondary emotion, he continued. That underneath it is something else. Like what? He hesitated. Then, shame. The word settled heavy between us. Because it fit too well. Every time he lost control and saw the aftermath, my fear, the damage, the regret, shame flooded in. And instead of tolerating it, he'd lash out again to escape it. Cycle explained. Not excused. But explained. I never realized how fast it happens, he said quietly. Like milliseconds between irritation and rage. I brushed my thumb over his knuckles. Awareness is a start. He nodded. She's giving me stuff to try. Pausing. Naming the feeling. Stepping away before it spikes. The irony wasn't lost on me. Stepping away was exactly what he'd done the night he drove off. Except now, it had language. Intent. Progress. And for a while, it held. No yelling. No slammed doors. No explosive reactions. Just conversations. Imperfect but contained. Hope grew cautiously inside me, like a plant testing new sunlight. Until the night it cracked again. It was small. Stupid, even. Takeout. We'd ordered Thai. The restaurant messed up his order, chicken instead of beef. 3 weeks earlier, that would have been instant detonation. Now, he just stared into the bag. I watched him carefully, senses tuned. His jaw tightened. Shoulders lifted. Breath shortened. The pressure metaphor in real time. He froze. Then, slowly, deliberately, he set the container down on the counter. I'm getting annoyed, he said out loud. My heart skipped. Naming it. Just like therapy. Understandable, I said softly. He inhaled. Exhaled. It's not a big deal. Nope. Another breath. I can eat chicken. Yes, you can. His shoulders dropped a fraction. Victory. Relief surged warm through me. Until his phone rang. He glanced at the screen. And in that instant, same as always, the shift hit. Tension spiked. Eyes hardened. Jaw locked. Work again. The fragile calm shattered. He answered. What? Not hello. Not hey. What? I felt the air change. He listened. Face darkening with every second. Then, that's not my fault. My stomach dropped. Because I recognized the tone. The edge. The acceleration. He turned away slightly, voice rising. No, you listen. There it was. The old surge breaking through the new skills. He caught himself mid-sentence. Actually stopped. His eyes flicked toward me. And he saw it. My body had gone still. Not flinching. Not recoiling. But braced. The memory of fear still living in muscle. His expression crumpled, anger colliding with shame in real time. I'll call you back, he said abruptly into the phone, and hung up. Silence crashed into the kitchen. We stared at each other across the counter, both breathing too fast. I felt it, he said hoarsely. The spike. I nodded, throat tight. I saw. He pressed his palms to the counter. It's still there. Yes. Raw truth. He swallowed hard. I don't know if I can get rid of it. My heart cracked quietly. Because change wasn't linear. Healing wasn't instant. And love alone didn't erase patterns carved over years. But another truth stood beside that one. He was trying. Really trying. I don't need perfect, I said softly. I need safe. The words hung between us, simple, absolute, non-negotiable. For about 3 weeks, things were different. Not magically perfect. Not movie montage healed. But steadier. Quieter. Like the emotional volume in our house had been turned down from blaring to background. Nathan found a therapist. That alone felt monumental. He'd spent years insisting therapy was for people who can't handle their own crap, so watching him sit at the dining table filling out intake forms with a serious, almost nervous expression felt surreal. First session's Thursday, he told me one night, rubbing the back of his neck. I tried to keep my voice calm. Supportive, not overwhelming. That's good. He nodded. I'm kinda scared. The honesty hit me right in the chest. That makes sense. He huffed a small laugh. What if they just tell me I'm an asshole? I reached over and squeezed his hand. Then you'll be a self-aware one. He snorted. Rude. But he smiled. And that was the pattern those weeks, effort mixed with awkward humor, vulnerability threaded through discomfort. He came home from the first session quiet, thoughtful. How was it? I asked gently. He sank onto the couch beside me. Weird. Bad weird? No, like, someone holding up a mirror weird. My pulse quickened. Yeah? He nodded slowly. She asked about my anger. Not just when it happens, what it feels like right before. I leaned in. What did you say? That it's like pressure, he said, frowning slightly. Building fast. Like if I don't release it, I'll explode. My stomach twisted. Because that metaphor had always been visible from the outside. Hearing him describe it himself felt both validating and heartbreaking. She said anger's usually a secondary emotion, he continued. That underneath it is something else. Like what? He hesitated. Then, shame. The word settled heavy between us. Because it fit too well. Every time he lost control and saw the aftermath, my fear, the damage, the regret, shame flooded in. And instead of tolerating it, he'd lash out again to escape it. Cycle explained. Not excused. But explained. I never realized how fast it happens, he said quietly. Like milliseconds between irritation and rage. I brushed my thumb over his knuckles. Awareness is a start. He nodded. She's giving me stuff to try. Pausing. Naming the feeling. Stepping away before it spikes. The irony wasn't lost on me. Stepping away was exactly what he'd done the night he drove off. Except now, it had language. Intent. Progress. And for a while, it held. No yelling. No slammed doors. No explosive reactions. Just conversations. Imperfect but contained. Hope grew cautiously inside me, like a plant testing new sunlight. Until the night it cracked again. It was small. Stupid, even. Takeout. We'd ordered Thai. The restaurant messed up his order, chicken instead of beef. 3 weeks earlier, that would have been instant detonation. Now, he just stared into the bag. I watched him carefully, senses tuned. His jaw tightened. Shoulders lifted. Breath shortened. The pressure metaphor in real time. He froze. Then, slowly, deliberately, he set the container down on the counter. I'm getting annoyed, he said out loud. My heart skipped. Naming it. Just like therapy. Understandable, I said softly. He inhaled. Exhaled. It's not a big deal. Nope. Another breath. I can eat chicken. Yes, you can. His shoulders dropped a fraction. Victory. Relief surged warm through me. Until his phone rang. He glanced at the screen. And in that instant, same as always, the shift hit. Tension spiked. Eyes hardened. Jaw locked. Work again. The fragile calm shattered. He answered. What? Not hello. Not hey. What? I felt the air change. He listened. Face darkening with every second. Then, that's not my fault. My stomach dropped. Because I recognized the tone. The edge. The acceleration. He turned away slightly, voice rising. No, you listen. There it was. The old surge breaking through the new skills. He caught himself mid-sentence. Actually stopped. His eyes flicked toward me. And he saw it. My body had gone still. Not flinching. Not recoiling. But braced. The memory of fear still living in muscle. His expression crumpled, anger colliding with shame in real time. I'll call you back, he said abruptly into the phone, and hung up. Silence crashed into the kitchen. We stared at each other across the counter, both breathing too fast. I felt it, he said hoarsely. The spike. I nodded, throat tight. I saw. He pressed his palms to the counter. It's still there. Yes. Raw truth. He swallowed hard. I don't know if I can get rid of it. My heart cracked quietly. Because change wasn't linear. Healing wasn't instant. And love alone didn't erase patterns carved over years. But another truth stood beside that one. He was trying. Really trying. I don't need perfect, I said softly. I need safe. The words hung between us, simple, absolute, non-negotiable. The words hung between us, simple, absolute, non-negotiable. He closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, they were wet. I want to be that, he said. I believed he did. The harder question, the one neither of us spoke yet, was whether wanting would be enough. Because love can survive many things. But it cannot live long where fear still breathes. And as we stood there in the fragile quiet of a kitchen holding both progress and relapse at once, I understood something with sudden, aching clarity. This wasn't the end of our story. It was the turning point. Whatever came next would finally decide it.